Alright, I had to go run away for a while. I was trying to, here was the issue I came across. I need to make, let's see if I can get it, and if I keep looking this way instead of at you guys, that's because I'm trying to make sure everything's centered in the screen. Alright, what this does, you run it through, so and I'll show you. You bring it up over the top, you run it down, then you loop it back around. That way when you crimp it down, it locks it in place and it can't slide apart. Now the problem I had with this is that the size of the tubing I needed to use, I couldn't get, because the 3/32 at the hardware store was a little bit too narrow, and the 1/8 inch which I've got right here is just a little bit too big. And when I tried it with the thicker cable, that I probably left it upstairs, when I did it with the thicker cable that I'm using now, this, I couldn't even go through it twice. I couldn't come through it once and just go back through it and crimp it and glue it, because that probably would have worked. So when I went to the 1/8 inch, once again, it was just too big, and it did secure it, but it looked really ugly. And at this point, with the way the plane looks, I need to keep it as pretty as possible. So anyway, here's what I did. I went down to the hardware store, couldn't find anything, and then on the way back, when I was trying to figure out what I might have that might work, sometimes this thing actually works, I was thinking crimp connectors for electrical equipment. So anyway, for like spade terminals, these things. It's like a female spade connector. And I was looking at the size of that, and it's substantially smaller. So what I did, because I've got tons of these, the little 22 to 18 gauge wire, I've got tons of these things. I went ahead and cut one, and then once you cut it, you can't go all the way through. You can go halfway through because it's got this little dimple in here. That little dimple would be a really good place to cut. So what I'm doing is, once everything gets cut through, once you remove the plastic material, what I'm doing is I'm running and I gotta look, it's a small wire size bit in it, and it is a number 52 wire size drill bit. And what I'm doing is I'm firing this up. I want to make sure this isn't the one that I already drilled through, because I don't want to make it, no, this one hasn't been drilled through yet. So what you do is you take the 52 wire size drill bit, and then you're just going to fire it up and just run it through. Whoa, that ain't going to work too good. That's much better. So anyway, all I'm going to do, it's doing it off camera, but all you do is you run it through to get that little pressed in section on it, that little dot in. And then I'll just go ahead and I'll cut it right at that line, and then I'll have two probably 1/4 inch sleeves. This should work just fine, because it is narrower on the inside. Let me see if I can zoom you in instead of trying to move the camera, because I've got everything tied up tight. So anyway, see if I can get it so that it's viewing my hands. Wow. Alright, let's see how well this is, because you're about 6 feet away and my hands are this big. So anyway, what you do is you would just go ahead, you'd end up sliding it through, fold it back over, and then you're going to go back down through the same little connector. You're going to come down like this. Then you're going to loop this piece up over the top and then put it back down through, sorry about that, but then put it back down through here again and then pull it tight and then crimp it. So these should work out very nicely. Back you up, and I'm hoping that wasn't too far away. Yeah, so anyway, I'll show you when I do the tail. I'll have the camera all set up just so you can see how I do it, because I'll probably be swearing. So anyway, let me go ahead. I'll get these things cut down to size, crimp them in place, because I've already got the servo in. Here's the servo horn. That'll get reattached. So, and I'll just be doing it through these, because I don't have to worry about the length up here. I'll be worrying about the length back on the tail. So when I spin the plane around, I'll set the camera up on that side, and then hopefully everything will go well. I'm hoping, because I've got to make sure that I've got the adjustments farther out, because I know I'm going to have to take up adjustment on it. So these will be backed out in the rear. The ones on these little things right here, these will be backed out too. So I'll do that, and then I'll count the amount of turns in, so that way I've got a good idea of what I've got to work with, and then make sure it's as tight as I can get it before I have to start tightening up pulling the screws out, tightening up the cable. So, all right, I don't want to hit my head on this. I did it once already. I've got everything set up and pulled to the back and somewhat tightened up. I'm missing one of my little pins. So what I'm going to do is, because it's 1/8 inch, I'll just take an 1/8 inch. I'll make something just temporarily for now. I should be able to make something like that just out of I think a 440 or a 632 bolt with a shank on it. So anyway, what I'll do is I will kind of hopefully walk you through here a little bit on how you've got to set the pull system up. For those of you who've done it before, you know how it goes. It's not that difficult. You just got to make sure that you take your time and try to get it done right the first time, because if I mess up and I've got to pull more of this line through, at least I've already got the line through, and I could just, you know, tape off to it and just, you know, make sure it gets down through the sleeve, and then I can do it off the back. Anyway, what I did up top side, I used the clamp just to clamp the rudder to the vertical stabilizer. That way it's not gonna move, because this is just gonna be all kinds of fun and exciting here. I disconnected the elevator servo, but the rudder servo is still hooked up, so it's still alive. So that way when I pull on this cable, it's the servo itself is trying to stop it from pulling back. Alright, so I've already got it through, and I kind of just crimped it down a little bit with my fingertips, gently. Now I'm going to go ahead and slide it back through this little clamp, this little tube. And what I had to do with the tube was I used the whole thing. I used the whole one. I tried cutting one in half, and it's just too soft, because it is copper on the inside of this. Alright, and so this is going to come up and be approximately about that big, so maybe, you know, 5/8 of an inch. So I can make it tighter than that, but right now I'm just going to start with it right there. Then I come in, and then you're going to go ahead and crimp this wire over, just like that. Now this is the part where you're probably not going to be able to see, but I'm going to try to see if I can set it up so that you can. And then you take the wire and then you wrap it back through again. And hopefully she'll push through nicely. There we go. And once that gets pulled through, I'm going to pull it all the way out. And then while crimping it here, I'm going to pull my thumb this way and allow it, and then pull tight on it, and that way I'm pulling up the slack. Okay, so now that I've got it like that, what I'm going to come on in and do is I'm going to come in with my pliers and go ahead and just do a light crimp on it for now, because the stuff is relatively soft and crimps pretty easy. And this crimp might be good enough to last a lifetime. I'm not concerned about the direction that this is sitting in right now, because I'm going to have to adjust it. It's still sloppy, and as you guys just saw the video back in October with the tail jumping back and forth. That's because this line was loose. I had one line that was a little bit too loose, so this should be good. So I'm just going to go ahead, because it's got a decent amount of tension to it. I'm happy with it, so I'm just going to go ahead and just snip it. And what I'll do is I'll come in with some, once I get it all tightened up, I'll come in with some thin CA and just wick it and let it go inside and hit it with a little bit of kicker, and then that's good. That's not coming apart. Alright, so there's one side done. Let me go get the other side done, and then I'll bring it back when I get everything snugged up, and then we'll do a test. Alright, it's all hooked up. Everything's good. As you can see, I don't have the twitching, so everything is nicely tightened up. When you go up and feel the line tension inside the fuselage, everything's good. There is no side-to-side play on it. This little bit back here is just from the servo itself. That's just the gears, and because you got such a big spread. All right, the distance from this side to this side, dead center, is the same as the servo horn up on the servo. So that way, when you go left and right, there is no slop. All right, the elevator. Everything's set up on high rate. Here's high rate on the elevator and high rate on the rudder. And I have it set up so that you will not hit. I can go farther on the rudder, but you really don't need to. Elevator, that's about it. I'm pretty much maxed out on. It looks like I could probably go up a little bit more because I made some clearance, but that's more than enough. It was like, I think I measured out about 33 to 35 degrees, so that's fine for the plane. That's just going to be something when I'm on the ground anyway. So anyway, yeah, all right, so there's high rate, middle rate, and low rate. And it's pretty much the first flight will be take off at low rate, fly at low rate, and land at mid. The Piper Cub, I usually take off in mid rate, and when I land now, I put it on high rates for landing. It's just, I've got probably, I don't know, 200 to 300 flights on that plane, so I know what it's going to do, and it doesn't pull any punches. So anyway, that's full rudder. Regular flight will probably be somewhere right about there. Unless I'm going to do go up and do a hammerhead stall, then I'll go full. Until I get up and figure out what kind of snap roll this dog wants to do. I don't know. So it's just, I'm going to be taking it easy in the beginning. Yeah, and I think that's about it. I've got on the ailerons, I've already got mixed. I've already got it mixed in, a little bit of rudder mix in, just because it makes the plane fly better. I mean, I could sit there and I could throw a little bit of rudder when I'm flying, but I'm lazy. I'll let the radio do it. All right, with the tail done, what I'll probably do is spin the plane back around again, and it's tough spinning that plane around, because now I got the rudder on the back, and it extends the plane almost another 10 inches, so it makes it even tougher to spin the plane. So I'll spin the plane around and then go back to work on the front. I may have to pull the, because when I had to re-angle the motor, it changed the length necessary for the throttle cable. So I may have to pull that out, cut a little bit off the cable itself, and just resolder the end on and put it back together again. So I may do that. If I'm going to be working on the front end, I may try to put together, seeing that I got the radio system inside there now, I may go ahead and hook up the kill switch. It's a relay by, I think I showed you in the past. Alright, it's by a company called Dimension Engineering. I bought a lot of their products in the past. This they call battle switch, but what it really is, it's a radio controlled relay. So what it's going to do for a kill switch, it's going to ground the Magneto. It isolates the two systems because it is a relay. So what you're doing is you're sending power, you're sending your 5 volts of power, or whatever it is, 6 volts of power, through into the coils. You're going to energize the coils, and it becomes a relay. It's going to ground it out. It's going to create a switch that's not connected to your radio system, so you won't have any problems grounding through these things. I never used Dimension Engineering, but there was a, and I'm going to screw this one up, it was something 42, and I don't know if it was scale 42 or 40, I think it was called 42%. They used to make them, and I think the company went belly up, I'm not sure, but I've got a couple of those things in my other planes, in the biplane, in my quarter scale Cub. If this works very nicely, I've got the other quarter scale Cub with another Zenoa G23 in it. I'll go ahead and put one of these in it. So what you're going to end up doing, see if I can do it as close as possible. What you do is, because they've got the switches, you're going to come on in. You're going to come in possibly in switch 1 and then go out on switch 2. I'm going to have to read it. Yeah, it's positions. So it's going to be the power coming in, switch 1, switch 2. So all I got to do is I'll be able to hit like the you're going to have the ground going in, another wire coming out, going back to ground on the block, the motor block itself. So if I just hit my trainer switch, because I key them all through the trainer switch, that way it's just a momentary. If you happen to bump it, you're not going to kill the motor. It's going to, you bump it and it goes right back to running again. So that's how I'll set this up. And once it's all set up, you know, I can test it for spark, but until I really get the engine fired up and running, that's the only true test. Because otherwise I'm going to have to sit there and keep spinning the prop with it open and hold it. It's going to be a pain in the butt, but I'll at least get it hooked up so that way I'll know whether I did it right or wrong the first time. So anyway, so maybe I'll work on that as well. I just got to figure out where I want to mount that one. I'd like to mount it on the inside of the fuselage. I could put a couple screws into the back of the firewall, but I've got to have enough rope. I got to have enough wire coming through to go back to ground so that I could take that off the firewall to hook it up. So it'll be interesting. But I think I'll spin it around and I'll check out the throttle, and then we'll go from there. Alright, we lost power. Captain, we're gonna crash. Okay, I got the lights off for a reason. We're gonna show you something. Alright, here is the relay that I was gonna explain, I think, in an earlier episode. But it is all hooked up. What you do is, for the magnetos, you come off the ground connector for the magneto, and that goes up to the relay, and then it comes out and goes to ground. Now, once again, this relay, the power coming through these leads has nothing to do with this sending the signal out to the relay. They don't touch. They don't even like each other, but they work together. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this set up in a location where you should be able to see the spark coming through, and then Paul, who's standing in the darkness, will go ahead and pull back the switch, and you can hear it click. Alright, we've cut all the power out, and I don't know how well it's going to work. Alright, we can see the spark. Okay, you can see the spark very lightly. Alright, go ahead and hit the kill switch, Paul. Okay, now you can see a little light flashing in the background. That just means that it's getting signal, and you can see no spark. Alright, go ahead and let go of the switch. Now it's off, so the relay is now no longer energized, and we've got spark again. Alright. Los luces, por favor. Okay. Now I can go ahead and turn the lights back on. So you saw it in work, and it does work out very nicely. So remember, once again, I'm not a paid spokesman. It's called Dimension Engineering. Google it, you can find it. Alright, on to something new. Alright, so far, it has just been a very good day today. I've actually progressed along quite well. The good friend of mine, Paul Urquhart, came down. You saw in the last video, we got we ended up getting the windscreen somewhat aligned because it ended up being a two-person job. Here's a template right here. It still needs a little bit of tweaking, and I think it's going to be right up in here. It's just how it progresses through here. And I got to do a little bit of work on that, but that I can do on my own at this point. And then I think he's going to be coming back here in about a week from today, so we can try to get the clear one cut and mounted. Because you got to drill the holes, put all the screws in, make sure everything's properly aligned and trimmed, and then you take it off, and then you have to use the it's around here somewhere. It's the Canopy glue. But you got to have all the holes drilled first. When you put the Canopy glue down, the screws go in right behind it. And then you know, clean up the best you can, and then it's done. You know, the stuff takes about a day or so, or two, to pretty much set up all the way. But then once it's on, it's on. So anyway, what I've got to do, because I'm finishing up another video for you guys. It's gonna be 2 videos edited today. But what I'm going to do is the doors to finish this up. So what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to come in and cut it right here across the bottom. I'll come in with my little Zona saw and just cut it as delicately as possible and not go all the way through it. I want to come down, leave maybe 1/64 of an inch, and then see what it's going to take just to shim that a little teeny bit. and that's why I'd rather have it as close to here as possible. You know, I mean, it would probably be stronger if I put it up above this, but it's just a door. It's just got to open and close. If this breaks, the plane's not going to break. If the plane breaks, this will break. So anyway, so let me get this kind of set up, and I'll bring you back for a couple little tidbits. Because I'm going to get them cut, I've got to make a wedge or two, and that'll just be done on the bandsaw. Who knows? I might even film it and just throw a couple little clips in. But just get all that stuff done, and then I can't get anything glued until I get it out in the plane and shim it. I'll put the door back on, shim it to the angles, however much it's got to be separated to bend up. And once I get it to that, then I can just go in and I'll hit it with some super glue, which should be fine. And then some kicker, and then sand it down, and you know, a little bit of orange paint on it, and they'll be done. So I will let me get things started, and I'll bring it back in from time to time. All right, door 1 is done. All I got to do is just glue it into place. You can see the wedge. It's a really long, thin wedge because you don't know what you're going to need. But anyway, here's where we're sitting. We're flush. We're flush along the top, right along this side, and everything's good. It stands proud a little bit down here. Don't really care. Don't care. You can see I've got some balsa in there, the little strip, just to bring it out close. I'd rather have it a little bit standing off than jammed up against it. All right, so this one I just got to come in, glue it, trim that down, and then let's go on to door number 2. Easy peasy. All right, door 2 is looking pretty good as well. It's got a little bit of a flare out here. I don't know if I really want to worry about that. I can adjust that if I really wanted to, just by coming in and just elongating this, and get in there with a fine file and just file it over this way just a little teeny bit, because I'm going to end up putting the door stops, like I did on this side. On this side, I just haven't done it yet, so I can do that. That's why I decided to leave this set up, so if I did move it out a little bit, this is still just slightly in at the top. But you can see with the flexibility now, it could, if I was going to leave it the way it was, it would still work out fine. But I think I'm going to not, of course, do it on camera. I'll do it off camera. But I'm thinking about just going in and doing that. I just got to find I know I've got a couple really small wood files. I just got to find it though. So if I can find a little rat tail, even back here in the shop, that should be fine, just to nibble away at it. Not a lot at once, just a little at a time. So I'll bring it back if I do decide to do that. If not, I might just call it a day, and got a lot of stuff taken care of, and I'll see you next time I'm down in the shop.